gentlemen. Thanks a lot for having me here. I've been given the task to finish this as quickly as possible. I surely don't have the technical expertise of Mr. Banerjee. It's probably one of the fastest crash course I've had on offshore structural steel. I've been supplying lots of offshore steel, but I never understood platforms the way you had put it across. Thanks a lot, Mr. Banerjee. It's indeed a privilege to be back in India after a year or so to a conference like this, and more importantly in an August gathering such as this. Mr. Kakkar had earlier pointed out that it sometimes is indeed a contrast in terms of what we as a nation do in terms of advanced technology and then where we are in terms of structural steel usage. In fact, precisely in the same gathering last year, if I recall right, we had successful mission to Mars. But then we're debating why is structural steel not used as much in India as elsewhere. I think this contrast exists, but the mere fact that we have almost double the audience today as compared to last year proves that we are on the right path. I think, personally, I feel India is in the cusp of steel usage in structural steel usage in buildings, not because of any concerted effort, I'm sorry to say this, but more because of the need which India is facing in terms of infrastructure development and in terms of space constraints for high rises and stuff like that. In this regard, I would like to share my personal experiences and my company's experiences in steel usage in the GCC. What I have to tell you is most of the building construction and infrastructure and oil and gas facilities, most of the back-end detail engineering for GCC plants, for GCC buildings is done in India. But yet, we don't see proliferation of buildings, proliferation of infrastructure to the extent we see in those markets which doesn't have native engineers. So there are a lot of things we need to do to catch up on this, but I will share our experiences in terms of where we have done work and what we have done in the market. It would not be justice if I don't talk about my company. Emirates Steel is a subsidiary of Senaat, which is an industrial conglomerate. We are fully owned by the government of Abu Dhabi. We are a 3.5 million ton steel mill, completely integrated, state-of-the-art mill, pedigree of only 5 or 6 years. We produce rebars, structurals, and wire rods. We produce about 2.5 million tons of rebars and wire rods, and more importantly, for this gathering, we produce about 1 million tons of heavy sections. It's a state-of-the-art Rolls-Royce mill. We produce from, I'll give you more details on this a little later. Our complex is in the heart of GCC. We have about 2,500 employees. We have revenues exceeding $1.65 billion as of 2014. Obviously, the steel prices, the way they are this year, it should be half. Okay. More importantly, and this is very important to us, we are a steel company with an environmental conscience. We are probably the first steel plant in the world, apart from one in the US, who is going to capture CO2 and sequester it for use in oil fields to improve oil field production. This, we are doing it along with Masdar in US and ADNOC to develop sequestration facilities. This project is actually ongoing. There's a huge investment being made, but that goes to prove that steel industry can be green and sustainable. I already told you, our structural steel mill produces about 1 million tons of heavy and jumbo sections and sheet piles. When I mean heavy, it's much beyond the range which is even produced in India. I will go into the details on this. Incidentally, Mr. Banerjee, we are a sister company of NPCC. NPCC is our sister company. Okay. Heavy section mill capabilities, as I already told you, it's an integrated steel plant with iron and steel making of its own. We follow the DRI electric arc furnace route, producing ultra clean steel. In fact, the steel which we use for heavy sections is an overkill. We produce ultra low residuals, very low carbon manganese, so very weldable, if you have to say, for the offshore industry. We produce a range of sizes. We produce British, European, and American shape. Obviously, we produce UBUCs, Euronorms, ASTM-Ws. In terms of the range, I told you this is a Rolls-Royce mill. We produce from 200 mm deep beams up to 1016 deep. And we produce from as low as 31 kg per meter up to 634 kg per meter in terms of unit weight. This is a really widely spec'd mill. We produce grades from S275JR, which is run-of-the-mill, to normal S355JR, and now to S355J2 and G11. We are just doing commercial trials now. We have just started the first lot of supplies. We are supplying to Technip projects in GCC, and we are supplying to a whole host of other oil and gas companies. In terms of welding, which you had mentioned, Mr. Banerjee, lengths up to 24 meters can be produced in this mill. We can even produce 36 meters, but it's only a logistics issue of transporting the 36 meter beams. We produce sheet piles for foundation, Z and U shapes. That might probably not be of interest to this gathering, but it's important to know. In terms of certifications, certifications are the key drivers for acceptability. Being an oil and gas pedigree, we have a whole host of certifications, both in GCC and abroad. As far as India is concerned, we have the BIS specification, we have the CE marking for Europe, we have factory certifications in Singapore, a whole host of certifications, all this starting 2012 January. We are a mill which has been in existence only for 3 years in terms of commercial rolling. This year we will complete 600,000 tons of production and would have shipped to 16 countries. So in a matter of 3 years, we are here. Okay. And we have all the oil company approvals, as you can see, ADNOC, Saudi Aramco, all these exacting requirements, and EPCs like Technip and so many others, to whom Petrofac, to so many others whom we supply. Let me come to the core topic today. What are the advantages of, I'm not a structural engineer. I used to be a process metallurgist once upon a time, but now I'm a pure out-and-out salesman. So please don't ask me too many technical questions. But having said that, what I've learned in the business as we go along, structural steel in building construction, main advantages are speed of construction, obviously, practical and safe. You can build over 800 meters. There are cost benefits, early occupancy with more rentable space, simply because you can build faster. Aesthetic appeal, we can promote expression and creativity. And as all engineers know, high strength to weight ratio, that itself gives its own advantages. Ease of design with full integration between analysis, design, detailing, fabrication, erection, construction, supervision, building, cost and project management services, and intelligent management software, as in BIM. Nowadays, sustainability is the buzzword. Steel is one of the most recyclable products in the world, so it meets the green quotient required also. It's modifiable, efficient, reliable, and predictable in terms of the deliveries. The last point is most important. The developed economies have reaped the benefits of building in steel. It is economies like ours which has nascent power, engineering expertise, everything, which have not reaped the benefits. I think we all need to work, and I'd like to thank Avneet if he's. I saw a wonderful concept where he said he's picking up 6 universities and giving them lectures and stuff like that. I think that's where we lack our issues, you know. That's the place where I think if engineers like Mr. Kakkar, Mr. Banerjee can go and mentor some young engineers in colleges, I think that'll make a lot of difference to the system. Structural steel in building construction advantages, I also already told you, reduced building height, piping and ductwork can be routed through the beam openings, and obviously savings. I have borrowed this from our friends in Eversandai. This is just a simple simulation of their erection schedule of a typical RCC construction and a steel construction. I showed this, if I'm not wrong, in the last year also. But just to quickly go through it, in 8 months' time, you can see that the steel construction can typically be almost double the height. Okay. Obviously, there are issues with fire protection and stuff like that, but there are experts to handle that. We are handling it in GCC, and we are building 800-meter tall towers. It's just that we need to partner here with the right people and get the fire protection by the side. Okay. In terms of steel construction, obviously there's a lot of aesthetic freedom. I'm sure the next picture I'm going to show, all of you would have seen it. You know, this is Burj Al Arab, a 7-star facility in Dubai, known for its luxury and beauty. But the back end of it is very simple stuff which we use every day. How to build it? This is it. This is the back end structural steel which went into it. Doesn't look too nice or too romantic, but this is what gave the facade for the most beautiful structure. Freedom to rise. We have seen these are the top 10 towers. Most of them have been built with steel, especially the last one. You can't pump concrete to the height or with ease to the height with which this is built. You can see this is the top of the Burj Khalifa. And this is again erected by a fabricator in GCC. Of course, he's an international fabricator. You can see what has been done, what has been achieved. This was our first project in 2012. This was our first project. This is Emal, one of the process facilities for the Emirates aluminium. Light, fast constructions are possible with steel without columns in the middle, with lighter foundations and greater speed. And this is Emal project. We supplied, I think, 30,000 tons in 2012 for this project. What are the major projects which we have done? We are very proud. In the last 3 years, we have achieved what many mills around the world wouldn't have achieved in the first 10 years. And that's probably because of the number of projects which is happening in GCC. I mean, I don't want to take credit for ourselves, but it accelerated our pace of development. These are the projects, I mean, in terms of the civil and heavy engineering, Abu Dhabi Midfield Terminal, which is the airport which is coming up, Mall of Emirates expansion, so many other projects. One which is noteworthy is the Mumbai Convention Center for Reliance. We are supplying through one of the fabricators. I mean, I think Mr. Kakkar is doing something. We're grateful for the opportunity. I think we are doing a good job. In fact, for this, we are supplying to 3 fabrication facilities, one in India, one in UAE, and one in Malaysia. I think it's a fantastic mix we are doing. We're doing lots of other projects, but the sum total is we have done about 100,000 metric tons of civil and heavy engineering projects in 1.5 years flat. And these have been completed. I think there is nothing which is, none of these are in pending completion. Almost everything has been supplied from our side, except bits and pieces here and there. When I move from the civil engineering, this thing to heavy engineering and oil and gas, there's a slight difference between the civil construction and the oil and gas sectors. What does the oil and gas sector need? They need very tight delivery schedules with adaptive rolling schedules with exacting requirements in terms of what the previous speaker was speaking of, offshore grades and high yield strengths and stuff like that. The exacting requirements are both in terms of product and in terms of quality. When I mean products, heavier sizes, cut to lengths, so many other issues involved, and quality meaning 50 KSI, 40 KSI, minus 50-degree impact. There's so many complications in that. Emirates Steel has developed a 2-pronged model for the ultra-large projects, which is greater than 10,000 tons, spread over 3 months and above. We work on a JV approach with both the EPCs and the fabricators involved, with directly supplying to the EPCs on free issue to the fabricators. In the last 1 year, I think we've supplied close to 70,000 tons of material to one of the world's leading EPCs on free issue basis to fabricators for oil and gas projects in the Middle East. For the smaller projects, we work closely with fabricators. We are involved from the design stage, and we use a mix of stock and rollings available at our disposal, offer minimal tolerances, meaning more or less piece count to the fabricators, and reduce wastage, simultaneously maximizing mill rollings in order to enhance delivery efficiency. In all these projects, the one thing which a mill can do, especially a local mill, we are not a local mill, but especially a local mill, is crash the rolling schedules as good as possible. Okay? And that, over a period of a year or so, we have been able to do it pretty well. In many projects where 15, 20,000 tons of structural steel were required, from day one of ordering, within the 5th week, we have delivered almost 60% of the material. That's a fantastic rate of delivery in terms of oil and gas projects. This procurement and distribution model is saving both time and costs, as well as serving to de-risk the supply chain for structural steel. I didn't want to write something here. One of the constant angst which I keep hearing from end users in India is, we don't get enough structural steel. That's probably because we have only one big structural steel producer here and they can't cater to everybody. I think that is getting mitigated now with, I think, SAIL coming up and others coming up. And for the rest, where the local mills don't supply, especially the heavier and the higher grades, guys like us can always supplement. Oil and gas projects, the earlier ones which I had indicated was the civil and construction projects. These are the oil and gas projects we have done. In fact, if you notice, we have done projects in USA. I mean, of course, this is supplied through our fabricators. This is just done over the last 1.5 months, 1.5 years. The denouement of this, the conclusion of this is, we have done 250,000 tons of oil and gas projects in the last 1.5 years. These are actual numbers. These are not sales publicity. These are actual numbers. This is the kind of projects we have done. And some of them have been extremely tight on schedules. Some of them have been extremely difficult to execute. And a lot of third-party inspection, a lot of testing. I mean, nothing which is easy. In GCC, nothing is easy in terms of fabrication supplies. I just want to give you an example of a game-changing project execution, which is the UZ750. It's called the Upper Zakum 750. It is an expansion of an existing oil field to lift the capacity to 750,000 barrels per day. This is just a view of the modules at one of our fabricators, offshore fabricators. This is the onshore portion of the offshore facility. This is not the offshore facility. We delivered 22,000 metric tons of S355J2 grade for the UZ750 project within 12 months. For us, it's a real record because it was in the 2nd year of our commercial production. It was cut to length, light to heavy sections, supplies to 4 fabricators, just-in-time deliveries. The biggest advantage with the fabricator's hand was having a mill which was close by, which could deliver within 5 or 6 days in terms of transit time. The biggest advantage was that they could modify the design at the last moment. It made a lot of change to the way they worked. In certain cases, when they wanted the sizes changed or the rolling advanced or the cut lengths changed, we could do it together. And that flexibility a section mill needs to have. Section mills do not have problems in casting or rolling the steel. Section mills have problems in production planning. We roll, as a company, we roll about 600 unique sizes. To production plan, 600 unique sizes over 50,000 or 60,000 tons a month is not a joke. Okay? Thank you. I'm done.